Because it's got a lot of nuances to it.
Mr. Simonian?
Hey, good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of October 22nd, 2015 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent hearings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available on our website at www.glendaleca.gov. That would be G-O-V. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Benlian.
Here.
Board Member Charchian.
Here.
Board Member Malikian is absent. Board Member Simonian.
Present.
And Chairman Mardian.
Here.
The report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside of City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on October 14th, 2015. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication cards, and I believe none were turned in.
It's okay, I'd like to go.
And that brings us to the review calendar. At this point in time, there are no staff announcements. There are two cases on tonight's agenda. The first case is for a project at 1135 Elm Avenue. That particular project is being continued to the November 12th, 2015 Design Review Board meeting. So with that...
You need a motion for that?
Yes, I would need a motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion. Motion to continue PRD 1517653 to November 12th DRB hearing.
I have a motion by Board Member Charchian. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Board Member Benlian. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Benlian.
Yes.
Board Member Charchian.
Yes.
Board Member Simonian.
Yes.
Chair Mardian.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0. And if you'd like, I can turn it over to the chair
Thank you.
to turn
Good
it back
evening,
over.
everyone. Welcome. We'll go to the next agenda item. Is there any staff announcements?
There are none.
None.
No.
Okay. We'll go to agenda item B, which is PDR 1511742, 707 North Pacific Avenue. I'll go.
Back over to me.
We're
Yes,
back to
thank
you.
you, Chair
Okay.
Mardian. Board members. The project site that under discussion right now would be for a particular commercial development proposed at the corner of Pacific Avenue and Burchett Street, located at 707 North Pacific Avenue. The site is currently developed with a one-story commercial restaurant building, formerly known as the Marie Callender's, which in this case has been vacant for a period of 2 years. The proposal consists of demolishing the existing restaurant building and constructing a new 12,900 square foot plus a 1,600 approximately square foot mezzanine. It'd be a drugstore with a drive-through pharmacy on a 1.1 acre site currently zoned C2 Height District 2. If you don't mind, I'm going to go up to the board.
Well,
There is an aerial picture here, and at the far end, and apologies because the dais is under construction. We do not have the computer system or the screen up available to show you an aerial image of the project site. But the property's located, and this would be the 134 freeway, north of Pacific, our zone C2, and along Pacific Avenue, you'll have low-scale commercial buildings. Along Burchett and running over to the end of Burchett is Fremont Park. If you visited the site, you'll notice that the Burchett is developed essentially with one-story, single-family residential buildings, though directly to the west is actually a two-story commercial building. So they are proposing to demolish the existing restaurant building, and what I'd like to do is just go through the staff report point by point, essentially, since it is grouped into three main categories, the first being site plan. The restaurant, in its location on the corner of Burchett and Pacific, is essentially going to be replaced with a restaurant use in essentially the same location as the current restaurant. You'll notice here's one site plan, and this perhaps is a little bit better of a site plan here. The restaurant closer towards Burchett, it is being replaced obviously by the Rite Aid. The existing surface parking lot will remain as is. There are two-way driveways on Burchett providing access to the existing parking lot. The parking lot will be reslurried and restriped. They will be adding additional parking lot landscaping. The building itself is rectangular. Its longer portion is facing Pacific Avenue, and there will be a drive-through that to be proposed, or I should say to be constructed, along the interior of the building. Between the building and the parking lot, it does provide the required queuing lanes, and so in terms of circulation, it has been adequately addressed. The trash enclosures and loading dock are located to the south of the building along the rear, so essentially only the freeway on-ramp would the trash enclosures and loading areas be visible. That's specifically geared to provide all of the secondary access points in terms of, or I should say, the traffic and the trash collection and whatnot away from the residential developments along Burchett. Working in conjunction with the architect and the project team, staff has, at this point in time, developed street improvements along Burchett, which would help to alleviate the traffic flow and circulation of the use. And again, this is in regards to, and I'll take a step back, there have been issues with traffic patterns on Burchett and accumulation points. The applicant is now widening Burchett to provide a center turn lane traveling eastbound on Burchett into the parking lot, and then also widening Burchett to allow for a right-hand turn lane traveling westbound, or I should say eastbound on Burchett, south on Pacific. So these would help fine-tune the circulation and traffic flow both into the project site and out onto Pacific Avenue.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
And so they're widening the street to provide for a right turn as you're going eastbound, and then the center aisle that they're creating on Burchett?
Correct.
Where is that occurring? Is that occurring basically to create somebody going westbound to be able to turn into the parking lot?
Correct. So there is a small-scale shopping center that includes a Starbucks directly north of the project site. If you'll notice here, and I guess it's best seen at this location, what is being done currently, it is just a one westbound, one eastbound lane. What they're doing is that they're widening Burchett to allow then into a center lane turning lane where cars traveling westbound can wait, traffic can pass, still heading westbound, past the cars that are waiting to turn into the existing parking lot. Any other questions regarding site planning or the circulation public right-of-way
So how
improvements?
much actual dedication has been done with the realignment? It looks like it's not a straight.
It's not a straight line.
It's not a straight line, so there's some curvature and all that.
It varies.
So how much sidewalk do I have? How much setback do I have there?
There is a 10-foot curb face to property line dimension, which would allow for a 5-foot sidewalk. And then they are required by code to provide an additional 5-foot setback along Burchett
So total from curb face is 10 feet.
to the property line.
The
It would be
property.
15 feet
It would
to
be
the
15.
building.
Okay.
And what the dedication that was provided to provide for the turning lane,
Yes.
was that a voluntary enlargement, or was that something that engineering department basically asked for?
That was in conjunction with the engineering, with traffic and transportation.
And
Evan, it is somewhat voluntary, it working together with the traffic and transportation. This is the plan that was ultimately brought forward.
so the island is actually in between those two driveways serving the facility.
No, there is no actual raised island.
It's just a striping then.
It would be just a striping, correct?
Okay, all right.
And this queuing lane that's created, at some point, it turns into a left turn only, and then at some point, it's to provide a queuing as you're going westbound. So is it one of those S-shaped kind of onlys where half of it is for the queuing for folks traveling westbound to turn left, and the other half is for folks traveling eastbound to turn north?
Well, actually, if there's the center lane is primarily is for the traffic that is going to be entering and making a right-hand turn, or I should say a left-hand turn into the project site. Past the property, that center line essentially goes away, and traffic is back to a one way, one way, exactly.
Two-lane.
So
Eastbound.
one lane traveling westbound, one lane traveling eastbound with no center lane. So the dedication is solely on the subject property.
You can see that site plan almost shows 3 lanes once you go past the building.
I'm sorry, do you have the pointer? Do you mind?
Maybe the traffic consultant could answer these questions. But this turns left, and then this goes straight, and then this turns right.
That is correct.
And then at some point, this portion of it becomes the queuing area for cars to queue up in the middle to turn left.
Correct.
Okay. And then all this leaves us with enough room for cars that are going westbound to go past all this.
Correct.
Okay.
So the applicant is actually also providing a right turn lane traveling eastbound and then turning south on Pacific.
Got it. Okay. All right. And this curb face here is this curb face.
Correct. Yes.
Here, I see. And then at some point, this does this, where the parking is the parallel parking, this parking.
That particular,
No, it's not.
it's right here. So this parking would be right here. So this would be the Starbucks at this location with,
The seating.
this is the on-street parking.
Okay.
And then you'll notice here, it drops down, and then you
Okay.
have your single-family residential neighborhoods.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Can I get that, please? Can you clarify, Villia, for me? Okay, we're creating this right turn lane going south. Then we have this lane going straight.
Yes.
Then we have this lane going left. So where is the queuing occurring? Because this shows left lane arrow.
The queuing is in line with that left turn
The
lane?
queuing, correct. So in this case, so if they're traveling westbound, they'd be
Going there,
west,
okay,
going
so-
into this lane, waiting, turning
All right.
left, south into the project
It's
site.
an S transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So forgive me,
again-
I thought you meant an S transition back here, which it's not. It'd be at this location.
How many vehicles can queue in that queue pocket?
That is a question to be answered by traffic and transportation.
Really, I'm going to go back to that other question that I had. I'm looking at this plan. It says 5-foot setback, then it's almost 5-foot sidewalk. Where does the 15 happen? right up here, unless maybe I'll ask the applicant. Dude, this looks 5 feet,
Okay.
5 feet. It's not 15 feet.
It's not 15, then, you know what, you are correct, and I apologize. Then that is,
Yeah, that's just,
that's,
that's just.
it's a 5 foot to the front, to the property line, and then a 5 foot setback to the building.
So there's not much dedication has occurred there. Most of the dedication has occurred.
At this location.
This location, okay. All right. Any
And
more questions?
I'm going to look to the civil engineer to make sure that that's the correct information, yes.
Any comments?
Any other questions
Question?
regarding site plan or the public right-of-way improvements?
No?
All right.
Okay. The next scope within the site, or within the staff report, is actually the mass and scale. As you notice that it's a one-story building. The highest point on the building would be this tower element that is 30 feet high. The remaining parapet at points vary to the lowest point, which would be 22.9 from grade. This higher point specifically addresses the Pacific Burchett. So in terms of the mass and scale, they focused the tallest portion of the building at the corner and then varied the flat roof lines throughout the rest of the project, with the corner elements being the taller, and then you'll have the lower parapet between the corner elements. There is a two-story commercial building directly to the west of the project. This particular mass and scale of the proposal is compatible with not only the adjacent commercial building, but also the single-story commercial buildings along Pacific Avenue. And because this is on a very heavily trafficked Pacific Avenue thoroughfare, again, the mass and scale is appropriate for the Pacific Avenue, and then it transitions down into the single-family residential neighborhood along Burchett. Is there a question for Stone? Okay. The overall design of the project also helps in terms of breaking down the mass and scale. There are variations in plane. There are changes in the material. The corner elements are treated primarily with the brick facade. You'll have the walls and the banding in between the brick corner elements treated in a horizontal banding type linear system to sort of break it down and focus the eye on the horizontality of the project. The elevations also include not only vision glass, but also spandrel glass to sort of soften the look. And so with this variety of materials and treatments and facades, the mass and scale of sort of more this rectangular building is broken down. The last topic in the staff report was design and detailing. Again, what you see here is being presented by corporate Rite Aid. It's somewhat of a contemporary rectilinear building utilizing brick veneer, the concrete block, spandrel glass, vision glass. They are including the primary aesthetic are these type of corner elements, somewhat more towered, that are capped by the bands, which are also then seen along the awnings. And you'll notice that above the door spans and above the drive-through windows, you'll have the metal capped awnings. And overall, all four sides are treated in a somewhat similar fashion, so there is consistency throughout the entire building. The one item that staff would like to note, and what we somewhat recommended as a condition of approval, is to perhaps take a look and to see in terms of the design and detailing of that front entryway. Now again, this front entryway is facing Burchett. It's on the interior so that there is access to both from the parking and then also from pedestrians. But based on the overall look, there could be a little bit more of a design around the actual storefront system at this particular location. Other than that, staff had no other comments regarding the site plan, the mass and scale, and the design and detailing of the project. Because the building was over 10,000 square feet in size, obviously there was an environmental review done. Staff prepared an initial study. It was circulated for the 20-day comment period from September 28th through October 17th. During that time, staff received 2 comment letters. Those comment letters, yes, correct, were forwarded to you, in which case staff prepared the response to comments and forwarded you the final negative declaration for your consideration, which again, the board has to consider the environmental prior to making a determination on the actual project itself. And for the record, also the applicant held a neighborhood meeting on the project site on September the 29th. So there was an opportunity for the applicant and the neighboring, or I should say the neighborhood residents to meet and take a look at and review the actual proposal. That concludes staff's presentation. Obviously, there are many more details in the staff report. So,
is this a 24-hour facility?
This would be a 24-hour facility, yes.
And as far as the lighting of the parking lot, is there a plan to show us what that looks like?
I will take a look and see on that project site. But again, all of the lighting as required by code must be shielded and turned away from any adjacent uses.
Okay.
So it would be directed onto the parking lot only.
Do we have a detail of the awning?
If there was not one in the pack, I believe that there were some details actually in the last few pages of your packet.
No, those
If
are
not,
not
then
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to take a
I don't know,
look.
maybe you're familiar with, I'm looking at I guess that's their civil plan. Those biofiltration basins. It looks like they're planters in some areas, but they're, is that a drainage devices that they're required to have? Because that occurs in those 2 planters, especially the one in the up top there. We can ask the applicant to clarify.
We probably verify that with the applicant.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm going to open the public hearing, but I just want to remind the audience the applicant is allowed 5 minutes, and everybody else wishes to speak. I'm going to be very firm on the 3 minutes. We have a lot of audience, a lot of people here, so and please do not repeat whatever your comments are.
Mr. Chair, on that note, I have a prior commitment to go to this evening, and so I will be recusing myself probably around 6:45 or so. So I'm glad you're mentioning the 3-minute limit, and so it'd be nice to go through the comments as quickly as possible.
Okay, Mr. Simon, we'll try to be out of here, and if not, we'll make it work somehow. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I have 2 owners here, Evan Franken? Oh, Franken, okay. And or Mr. Hamarastomian, whichever, or both, however.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we're pleased to be before you for this project. And Evan certainly can introduce himself, but I'm a former long-term resident of Glendale. My office is in Pasadena, and glad to be a part of this project. We want to thank you and the members of the staff. Really has been great to work with, Jay, and all the other members of the staff. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you all very much. We have our full team here, by the way, our traffic engineer, our civil architect, our architect, and the civil engineer. They're all here, along with the owners. I as well would like to thank the city staff for their help. We did, as we were looking at the project, we looked at multiple options of what to put on this site. Multifamily being close to the freeway, and the impact of it was not something that the community would like. Also, we looked at hotel, again, another use whose impact would be negative to the environment. As we saw, the retail portion would be the most accretive, and having a quality retailer like Rite Aid to go on this site would be highly accretive to the neighborhood. Besides that, we've been very proactive in working with the neighborhood. As Villia said, we met with them on 2 occasions to make sure that we heard all of their comments and all their concerns. And we've also been proactive, as Villia said, on widening the street to make sure that we don't create any congestion, that we alleviate any congestion that there is now, as well as the right-hand turn that turns on Pacific. Besides that, I have nothing more to add, but I'm going to turn it over to our architect,
Since you're
Albert.
up here, sir, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
How did that meeting go? How did the community meeting or your meeting go with the neighborhood?
You know, from our impression, they were pleased with our project. They thought it would be a great addition to the neighborhood. There's other issues that concern them. But as far as our project goes, the fact that we're self-parked, the fact that we're adding all these different features to alleviate any congestion was a positive.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to the next speaker. Is the architect, Mr. Albert Croft, or Hirschman?
Hirschman Architects, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, finally be here. We've been working very diligently on this project, and I also want to thank Villia and Jay for all their help. They were always available to us. It's not often we get planning staff so accessible, so we really appreciate that. Villia, you explained the design, our goal in the design very well, so I won't take time on that. So what I'd like to do really is address the one comment you had noted about the entrance, trying to make it a little bit more transparent. So in preparation of that, we did a little alternate that I'm going to give to you now, all right?
Thank you.
And I'll explain what we did.
We could help you with that.
Thank you. There are 2 sheets there, and they're the ones that are affected by it. So basically, it's the north elevation facing Burchett and the west elevation which faces the parking lot. So if you compare it with the upper sheet of the elevation and the second sheet on the rendering, what we also did is on the rendering you're seeing, we rotated the view a little bit so you see more of the entry feature. So we need to maintain the corner masonry, but we reduced the size of that a little bit for structural reasons. We don't want to have to completely redesign that and create a cantilever. So we've maintained the corner masonry, but we expanded the glazing area. And we've done it primarily with spandrel glass. But again, it gives it a more open feeling, and it gives the entry more prominence, makes it look like it's more accessible and more visible, frankly, for the customers. But you could see how we changed the angle of the rendering. We rotated it so you're standing a little bit more across the street. Bless you. We looked at potentially other materials, but the building is very clean with the concrete block, with brick veneer, and the metal awnings. We didn't want to introduce any other surface materials. Again, the structure is very pure. Primarily, the exterior material is the structural material. So again, we didn't want to introduce new materials to the project. Keep it very clean, straight lines, and consistent with the design. So hopefully that responds well to comment, and it becomes...
I have a few questions.
Certainly.
You turned in a material sample, but on the packet that I got, you showed split face on all of them except actually, you show split face on all the CMUs, but I see...
The sample, yes. The sample doesn't show it as split face. It's a function of what we can get from the block manufactured time. But all the block is split face, integral color, and we've been very deliberate in our construction documents. You could see the lower sheet there, defining each row, each layer. So there are no mistakes.
This treatment, I appreciate this treatment. I've had experience with the roof treatment there. The material in between this, the cap that you have or the band, is that metal too?
It's metal, yes. Yeah, it's all a metal coping, and there's a little recess there to create a nice shadow line.
But I'm looking at the roof plan. I saw two different roof plans. These are just parapets. You're wrapping
Yes,
around,
yeah.
thickening them, doing a parapet. I
Yes.
didn't see a volume of a roof there, or a tower, actual tower.
Well, what we're doing is we raised all the corner elements. We figured that's where we're going to put all the mechanical equipment, so we don't have to create any false screens from mechanical equipment. The screening is part of the architecture itself, and you can see where we located all the HVAC units.
Do you have a detail of the awning? How are you treating the underside, or what's the top of the awning? Is it transparent?
I don't have the detail of it. I don't know if we.
Yeah, that's
Because that's a tricky awning.
But
I've
what we're
dealt with
doing, it's a manufactured metal awning,
Okay.
bronze finish. What we're doing to the underside, we're putting a perforated mesh on the underside.
But the top is
The top is
solid.
of the awning itself.
Oh, it's
N-
not-
no,
no.
it's open, and then there's the mesh. The only place we have a solid bottom on the awning is over the drive-through, so it provides weather protection
So
for
it's,
customers.
So the
Yeah.
water can come.
Yeah, but there'll be an opening for water.
Water,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Again, the idea, keep the very simple, not a really heavy structure like you often see.
Yeah, because that was my next question. Those turnbuckles or the rods supporting it, are you're going to rely on those to support the structure.
Those plus they're anchored in,
Then
into,
they're
yeah.
anchored
And
with
it's
the
all been
ledger.
engineered.
Yeah. But are you sure those plates that the anchor or the turnbuckle or the rod that you're using are going to be sufficient enough? Because they look very, very small to me.
Well, we do have the structural details.
Because I've,
They better be.
I don't think you're going to get away with
I'm going
that
to have an
size.
angry client and tenant.
But my next question, I don't know if I should ask you or your civil engineer, what's going on with those bifiltration basins at the planters? Because I see planters, but then I see those are drainage devices. Am I correct?
Oh, well, I think we
talking
should defer
about-
that to
Okay.
the civil engineer, yeah.
Go ahead, answer that question.
I'll get to you. Let me finish with Mr. Any questions, gentlemen?
Yeah, I do.
Well, go ahead.
So please.
Go ahead, Mr. Moran.
There's a roof plan here, and then there's a roof plan at the lower left.
Yes.
The lower left actually shows actual parapets that continue in within the roof that actually are depicted in the perspectives, whereas in this roof plan doesn't show it. So which one is
You
correct?
can come up, sir.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
Just watch your phone. I think he's talking about the middle of construction.
Is this what you're talking about this?
Yeah, these parapets
Yeah,
here.
you could see on the, on the lower left, the treatment here, this wall goes further, which then makes this perspective accurate. Or, I'm sorry, which makes this, which,
This, yeah, this is the
And
view
then-
facing.
right, where this is, we're gonna see this from Pacific. And which one is correct? That
Well,
roof plan or this?
This is the.
You understand, those were our schematic design drawings, and this is the construction document. So you are correct. We would extend that.
So which drawing should we
For
ignore
the roof plan,
today's-
for the roof plan, this is the construction document, so look at this.
What else
That
should we
was
ignore there?
a design drawing. I mean, we've made, yeah.
Oh, wait, are the top drawings
No,
above the roof
no,
plan
this
schematic
here.
as well?
Again, this was the
Those
schematic.
drawings are okay?
Yeah, this is the site plan, this is the actual floor plan.
Okay.
With, this shows the actual fixturization inside the store.
With the exception of the loading opening.
Pardon me?
With the exception of the loading opening there, it's not shown there. You have an opening at the back, but the loading area,
Okay.
Well,
this is correct. This is the
Okay,
loading
sorry.
dock door and the access door. Again, those were schematic, and now
we
now we're
want to
into.
make sure that the
Yeah.
plan we approve.
So
whatever.
this is the one you take to the bank, so to speak.
And what do you propose, I mean, you mentioned that the idea was to create more of a true tower element. And so, and the intent was to create the tower element to mask and to screen the HVAC equipment. But that's the latest roof plan certainly isn't in that spirit. So what do you propose to finish that thought, or have things come up that are not indicated
We just
on
need
this
to
drawing?
extend some of these legs up this way, and we'll take care of that.
And this general coping that's occurring, is this with brake metal?
Yes, yes.
And is this brake metal as well?
Inside, yes, yes.
And is that a Rite Aid corporate finish that they're going after, or is that something that the architect has come up with?
It's what we've come up with, but again, if I'm not speaking out of term, Rite Aid's prototype has changed a lot. It's a lot more contemporary. You know what most typical drugstores, I won't mention the other names, but in general, all you see is sort of knockoff on Spanish style with these huge entry volumes, with awnings over plaster walls, with foam cornices. We wanted to create a more solid-looking building, a clean building. So, and Rite Aid is, I know they're extremely pleased with the design.
Have you considered other coping designs? Because in a way that it seems somewhat unfinished, and so I wanted to know if you've considered other thoughts, or if you have other thoughts.
To be honest with you, I mean, this is, we designed it and we're very pleased with it. You know, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but that's the way we felt it should be.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that top perspective, this white Rite Aid, is this hanging off the top?
It's going to
or
be
is it-
attached to steel tubes, and we have that all detailed in the construction documents. Again, that's kind of our focal point, as Valia said, that's the corner.
And then there is a void space behind.
There is, yes. Yeah.
And so there's this tube steel that kind of turns the corner.
wraps
that
around.
the Rite Aid logo and that attaches to.
Yeah. And I know we're permitted one sign per elevation, but like that, we're able to get in that one location both the Rite Aid logo and the sign itself. Yeah. But we do have all that detailed in our construction documents. It's anchored back to the wall and of course to the sides.
Do you have those here by any chance?
I don't.
Since we're
But-
talking about coping, I'm sorry to jump in. You have this detail here where you're recessing the coping, and it's different on each different elevation. Is there a reason for
Well,
that?
it's
See it happening some places and not happening.
yeah, we have
Almost got
it
two different
at
towers.
certain
He's got two
volume.
different-
You know, some of the towers, they're different width, they're different height, they're different, different proportion. So what's consistent about it is the top piece. And again, we're trying to vary it a little bit. It's kind of like the entry tower is a different statement than the other towers because again, that's our focal point. But the detail itself is consistent all around.
And what's inside the recess? That's metal as well?
It's just lined with metal. Yeah, same metal.
Thank you, Mr. Simoni, for asking.
There's
that
no
question
exposed plaster or anything on this project.
about the corporate image, because I've seen similar buildings, other parts of the city, not here, I mean other cities. Is this the material, the theme of the material that the Rite Aid has?
Yes.
Because I've seen
I mean, we've
similar
developed the
image.
design for this, but their prototype, their latest, is about brick veneer, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn.
Okay.
We have a representative here, a construction
Thank you, Mr.
manager from Rite Aid.
No, my questions were answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to go to Mr. Ron Skelko. Is it? Yeah, all right.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Ron Sklepko with DRC Engineering. I'm the civil engineer on the project. And so you wanted to hear a little more about the
Yeah, I want to make a
water
clarification.
quality?
Is that a planter or that's just a drainage device area? Because you have them in a few locations.
Yeah, there'll actually be four.
Four, okay.
There are two primary ones in the northeast corner and the northwest corner, and they are planter areas. They're depressed planters.
They're depressed, okay.
Looking about 12 inches,
Okay.
but they'll still have plant material in them and the traditional mulch. But the water will infiltrate after it's ponded in there. We have a good infiltration rate on site. It'll be about half an inch an hour after a factor of safety of 3. So that'll get into the subsoils.
So trees will not be able to be planted in that area?
We can plant trees in those.
You can?
Yes, we can.
Can, okay.
And the root system helps with the pollutant uptake.
So it's an open bottom planter, essentially.
It's a planter that's depressed with 3-to-1 side slopes. So they're generally
It's more of
attractive.
a retention pond in a way.
Right. It's an infiltration basin,
Pond,
but
okay.
it's
Do
dressed
you need
up
them in
with
so many
landscaping.
places? Do you need them? So many of them? Do you need so many?
Yes, the MS4 permit requirements have specific calculations about the volume that has to be captured and infiltrated.
Sure.
Anything beyond that captured volume will exit the site. We'll have a new rectangular parkway drain at the northwest corner. It'll go under the sidewalk once you get a large storm event.
And so there's really no hole. It's just going to be covered with earth, and you have the 3-to-1 slope going next to it up. And the reason why I'm asking is because it's at the hard corner, so there's going to be people walking along that sidewalk. And there might
Right.
be people, I don't know, cutting across that area. So in a way, it's just 3-to-1 bank going down and then
A level bottom.
Got it. With natural
A
soil.
depressed planter, not in terms of emotions, but a depression in the planter that, when it rains, will store water for infiltration. I think because it's sloping, people will be less likely to walk through it. I think they're in locations where they're not prominent.
Okay.
I have a question. And I haven't had the time to check it, but the water that's collected on the roof, is that directed to the these catch basins, or is that directed solely to the rainwater system that you're installing in the you said northwest corner?
Yeah, the site's all surface drainage, but the roof is programmed to drain to the east into the basin, the infiltration basin at the northeast corner. And that's a very large landscaped area, and so it'll be easy to incorporate that. We'll also have a secondary outlet if that basin were to fill up. It'll get out to Burchett.
Mr. Valani, you have a question for the gentleman?
I know it's not a straight line, but do you know approximately how many feet of dedication?
Way offhand, I know it goes from 0 to almost 11 feet as you get to the corner of the building. I would say maybe 400 or 500 square feet. I don't have the exact number.
Thanks.
And my last question to you is, are those the only ultimate locations for those biofiltration devices?
Like I said, we have a couple smaller ones. They're
But
on
are those the only locations you can make it work?
Yes, they're the site drains.
Yeah, I understand the site drainage, but the reason I'm saying it, we have a huge parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get some landscaping, mature landscaping that survives in those areas, because even the strip of the island that you have right now separating those two driveways is very minimal landscaping. I mean, I could see it right here, this rendering.
On Burchett.
On Burchett, yeah. And I don't know if there's a way to do it, but I'm going to put that out there.
There is another planter in between the two driveways that is providing an opportunity for street trees, I know.
It's not much there, though.
We have the landscape plan is on the wall behind you there.
That's what actually led me to that question, is the landscape plan, because in that area I only see one tree located a little further down here. Nothing else within that area. Of course, there's a
again, we're not restricted to putting a tree in those basins. We do it all the time.
Okay,
So maybe a tree added in the northwest corner might be helpful.
thank you. Any other questions? All right. I have Mr. John Bogdan. Anybody has a question for traffic?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. John Bogdan, can you come up?
Yes, thank you. John Obagdanian, JB Associates. I can answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Charchan?
Yes. Has this safety approach, in this rendering, because this is on Burchett, and I know that there's a left turning lane. Yeah, left turning lane that's added here. Has the safety concerns of access by someone making a right turn from Burchett, overstepping into this area, been addressed by your traffic study?
Well, you're talking about the corner of essentially the southwest corner.
Going from Burchett, making a right into the Rite Aid parking lot. This seems to be very susceptible to traffic problems. Overshooting the right. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming in from the left here. Has that been part of the study? Because I'm not privy to what you consider.
Well, essentially, any time you have a driveway that is within a sidewalk, that creates, people have to cross from one side of the driveway to the other. It's true of every market, every gas station, every theater parking, shopping center parking, that where you would have to cross from one side to the other. So obviously, anybody who's turning in and out of a driveway, you have to yield to the pedestrians.
I'm so sorry. I'm not talking about people walking through the crosswalk. I'm talking about the entrance to the store.
They are off they're in that area. They are walking in the sidewalk area, and they're on the property.
Okay, I don't.
A car driving west, there are two driveways. A car driving east on Burchett would probably use the first driveway.
Hopefully, right? So typically, the reason I ask this question is I've seen a lot of drugstores that for various reasons put these really ugly, I think, steel holes in the front entrance, and we're dealing with a very visible, very close entrance to the street and also to the turning radiuses of these cars. And unfortunately, Glendale has a very bad reputation for both pedestrian safety and these types of issues.
I can address that?
Sure.
Because it's an architectural feature. Actually,
State your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Albert Croft, again with Hirschman Architects. Sorry. We are going to be adding a couple precast concrete bollards as protection for the entrance. They haven't been shown on the plans yet. It was actually, frankly, a result of a meeting we had earlier this week.
Okay.
So they haven't been reflected, but we're going to update our construction documents. But again, you can be sure that they're not going to be steel pipe columns. They're going to be nice precast.
Okay. So the answer to my question is you have considered the safety issues, and there are going to be some precast bollards in place to address any potential issues with someone maybe not making that turn properly.
Absolutely. Okay. Jonna wasn't aware of that.
I was
literally a decision made earlier this week.
I have a question for the parking consultant.
Go ahead.
Unless, any more?
I do, but I'll defer to your question as I formulate my next.
I'm
okay.
sorry, go ahead.
So my next question is in reference to deliveries and refuse pickup. Okay. The deliveries are in the very back of the property, and the access point is one of the two driveways. In your study for the traffic flow that causes, because I'm assuming that Rite Aid would get at least biweekly deliveries, have you thought of which of the two lanes they would use, and do you believe that that's going to cause any traffic problems right in the parking lot?
I will, I think, defer to the architect in terms of the delivery entry into the park, the delivery of trucks, how they would maneuver in and out. That was designed as part of the site plan for safety reasons, because you want to have a delivery truck entering the parking lot be able to back into the loading dock. Do you have that?
Well,
Yeah, it's order.
you have to come up here, sir.
in Aldercroft.
Because that is I can address the safety aspect, but I just want to make sure that you know, to answer your question about
Sure.
the layout of the
So,
delivery.
in other words, I'd like to know, deliveries are going to come in one of those two driveways.
Right.
And then the delivery trucks are going to have to back into that delivery bay. And so the same thing's going to happen with refuse, city refuse.
Well,
So what's
no, I
the,
understand
what's
your
the thoughts?
question. We did provide, even for Rite Aid, we had to provide the truck turning radius diagram. I could show you what the diagram.
Come on,
Please.
very quickly, yes.
Pardon me?
Please come up very quickly and show.
I'm not sure if I
Of
could
course,
see
please
the.
come around.
That's a good question, Mr. Charchan, because the one on, what is it, Montrose or Honolulu, they have their loading dock
This is more
just comes
simple.
into the
This is
street.
not the architecture plan. But again, trucks would be coming in off of the intersection here, coming off the freeway. So they would come in on the first driveway, only, and that's what our traffic pattern shows. They come in here, they would turn in here, and this is even extra wide, and we've left just a striped area with no parking. So trucks would come in here, there's plenty of room, they would back into their loading area, and they actually have the option, they could actually come out the same driveway and exit out, or this one. Again, can't control which driveway they exit, but they would absolutely come in on the first one, so that's the path of travel. And we provided Rite Aid with a computerized turning template, for large 18-wheelers. Because we need to make sure that our design works, that our layout works.
Okay. You said there's a consultant or rep from Rite Aid here as well for the
Yes.
specific questions? Okay.
Each one of these, depending on the size of the truck, they use the larger size trucks that typically does deliveries, and there are turning radiuses that you can lay out in the site, and it tells you if the truck and the trailer will be able to turn or they can back into a loading bay. So that was done by the architect as is typically required for the design, to make sure they will be able to accommodate that turning radius in the lot.
And from a safety perspective, you have considered this in your study, and you have considered that these trucks coming into the onto Burchett and entering the Rite Aid parking lot will not create a significant safety or traffic issue.
It is very typical. Majority of markets or Home Depots or Rite Aids, they all have, at some point, to the extent possible, they control the delivery of those so that it's not at the peak hours. But I will not say that they will not happen at the peak hour, but most cases, they have delivery schedules that it will not interfere during the peak time where you have a lot of parking activity, pedestrian activity, and they'll be able to in and out. The frequency of it at the large Rite Aid of this size is not as many as you would expect in a larger food market or supermarket where you have a lot more deliveries.
Yeah, I'm sorry to harp on this issue. I'm just very concerned because Burchett is a very unique street. There's the very, I would almost call it historic shopping center where the Starbucks is. I think it's a 1920s center that has seen many facelifts and has a very unique cutout for parking, which actually backs into Burchett. So you got to be very careful there. And you also have what looks like you've depicted an island, or at least an area that is demarked for safety purposes for that left turning lane that you're creating. The little piece on here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just give you a little sketch,
Piece
not
here.
a little
We're
sketch,
good.
it's a sketch
So-
that might show you a little bit better than what you,
Traffic flow?
that shows the
Actual change in the,
Okay.
The way that looks is it shows where the center two-way left turn is. That would be created. So almost about 60 feet long.
So just to clarify, you have considered the truck deliveries as part of the overall traffic survey, and you don't believe it's a significant issue?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
any more questions, gentlemen?
No.
Mr. Vallian, you have a question? I'm good. Okay. I'm going to bring in the Rite Aid representative, Mr. Parker, is it? Patrick. Oh, okay. Oh. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to butcher it.
Good evening. My name is Josh Patria. I'm the Regional Construction Manager for Southern California with Rite Aid. Here to answer any operational questions that you might have. I noticed, firstly, this won't be a 24-hour store. Hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. with about a half hour, 45 minutes on either end for the store employees to open up and close down. So again, not 24 hours. The lights will not be on 24 hours around the exterior of the building. As far as deliveries, a store this size only gets one main delivery a week for the truck. It's usually done later at night, around 8 or 9 or so. And it's not a refrigerated truck. It'll go and back up into its parking dock. So there's no refrigerated, there's no idling or nothing like that. The truck pulls in, stops, it's unloaded. There's no obnoxious smells from idling or extra noise from the truck or anything like that.
I have some questions.
Sure, go ahead. Sure.
You referred to a store this size, so can you educate me, please, on what is the average Rite Aid size? If there's an average
right
Rite
now,
Aid,
Rite Aid.
where this Rite Aid stacks up in comparison to the average Rite Aid.
This is slightly smaller. The two current Rite Aid prototypes are a 17,000 square foot and a 14,000 square foot. So this is, I think, is what, 11.9 or
12.9.
It's 12.9, so it's slightly smaller square footage.
And the Rite Aid that's currently on Glendale, is that going to remain in operation for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I believe it is. This is a net new store. Our market research, supports that this trade area needs another service. So
I'm not concerned about that. I just was wondering if this was going to take on the traffic and the other one of the
it's a net new store.
Okay, and then my last question in reference to this is seasonal items. I noticed that the storage area for this particular Rite Aid is, I would, in my opinion, my humble opinion, slightly small compared to what I would expect versus the vast number of products that Rite Aid sells. And it has been my experience, especially with the Rite Aid that's on Glendale, that whenever there's seasonal items, there's these 20-foot by 20-foot, 20-foot by 40-foot containers that are in the back that are used for additional storage. Are containers something that will come to this store?
No, that's we don't utilize Conex boxes for short-term seasonal storage, as you might see at a Walmart or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of that. Why those Conex boxes would be at that other Rite Aid, but we usually do not store for the holiday season. Everything is delivered inside, and they try and.
Okay. And because most of the items are shelved very quickly, is that why the storage area is not as large compared to the size of the store?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was it. That's all I have.
That's all. Gentlemen?
What's the minimum clear ceiling height you need inside a store?
The sales floor will be at 11'10", I believe, is where the drop ceiling will be.
11'10"?
Yes.
Because normally I see that your lowest points are at 22 feet, and normally you have about like 4 or 5 feet of structural and mechanical. So usually stores that have that requires a minimum of 16, 17 square ceiling height, they go with the 22.
Right, and this store does have a mezzanine over it for storage and also for electric utility room and telephone utility room.
That's what dictating the 22?
Yeah, and again, that storage is also utilized heavily for file storage that the pharmacy is required to have on site for a number of years. So it's usually filled up with paper prescriptions and things that the pharmacy operations are required to store on site.
I look at the plan, it's 14-foot ceiling height, Mr. Bowman. Yeah. 14 feet. You have a question, Mr. Simon?
Well, it was in reference to this ceiling.
It's 14 feet. That's what they're proposing.
To the drop ceiling? Or
to the drop ceiling. Am I correct? Maybe the architect can... I'm looking at the sections. Sheet 12.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that sheet says, but our typical sales floor would be 11 foot 10, so we don't carry that much volume.
Because I'm looking at this elevation here, but we'll bring you back. I need to go to the public first, but we'll clarify that when you come back. I'll give you time. Any questions?
I have one last question. We've heard of this being a prototype. Is there any other exterior design that Rite Aid uses other than this brick veneer? And
yeah, we use a variety of others of other architectural treatments, usually driven by the jurisdiction. If they had a certain theme that they were going for, we utilize masonry blocks, split face as much as possible, because as Albert said, it's not only structural but it's decorative. We cover, if we're in a shopping center, we follow their theme. We cover with stucco or plaster, all sorts of iterations, but yeah, we primarily try and go with the block.
Okay, thank you.
And try and integrate the special architecture.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm going to go to the public.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to call Mr. Graves, Marty Graves.
Good evening. I am going to read, for the sake of time efficiency, a letter that I have written and sent to several people. My name is Marty Graves, and I have lived on Burchett Street for over 45 years. I have owned my home at 521 Burchett since 1978. I am speaking to you tonight, really not just for myself, but on behalf of many of our neighbors who are currently very concerned about the construction of this building in our neighborhood. I'm going to very briefly try to summarize some of our major concerns. Most of them evolve around traffic and safety. The traffic on both Burchett and Hahn Streets has become increasingly heavy within the last couple of years. Hundreds of cars, trucks, and motorcycles speed up and down our street at all hours of the day and night. We have requested that speed bumps be installed on several occasions, and these requests have always been denied. We were told by the police department that a speed limit sign could be installed, but this has never happened. Oh, I forgot to mention I'm also the Neighborhood Watch block captain for the 500 block of Burchett. The intersection of Pacific and Burchett, which we have discussed a little bit, is especially problematic. Cars going south on Pacific routinely run the red light, making it difficult for even one person to turn left from Pacific onto Burchett. Starbucks customers double park in order to wait for a parking place, despite the no stopping at any time signs that are clearly posted. This makes it very difficult for cars that have turned left onto Burchett to proceed. You often can't go around these cars without going across the yellow line, which is illegal. You also have to deal with oncoming traffic that is going east on Burchett. I have personally come very close to becoming rear-ended on a number of occasions. The corner of Burchett and Kenilworth is also very unsafe. Even though there is a stop sign on Burchett, there are no stop signs on Kenilworth. We have requested that stop signs be put in on Kenilworth, but these requests also have been denied. I have become increasingly concerned about the safety and the welfare of the residents and the people who are walking down to Fremont Park, which is located on Burchett and Kenilworth. Many of these people are children and senior citizens. On many different occasions, I have seen people come extremely close to being hit by speeding cars. A speeding car actually jumped the curb and went into one of my neighbor's front lawn. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but at least 6 people, including myself, have had their side view mirrors completely severed, and we are also dealing with an increasing number of bicyclists and skateboarders. It is impossible to park in front of our homes or back out of our driveways. People routinely park in the red zones, and drivers often make wide turns in and out of the professional building driveway. Yesterday, a man actually parked right in the middle of the professional building driveway, making it impossible for several cars to exit their parking lot. Loitering, noise, littering, and smoking are problems that residents have to deal with on an ongoing basis. It is common for cars to double park in front of our homes, and many times the drivers of these cars will scream back and forth at each other, play loud music, and make all kinds of noise. Frequently,
I'm gonna
large groups
Try
of
to finish your paragraph.
Okay.
Thank you.
The commercial use of the streets on our trash pickup day interferes with the ability of the trash trucks to do their job, and sometimes people even will move trash cans onto the parkway. I think we are mainly frustrated because for many, many years we have requested all of these different things and to no avail, and nothing has ever been done. And I was very happy to hear that it was not going to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which was what our understanding was that it was going to be. So that was really bothering me the most, I think. Yeah, I was told by someone in the planning department that our street is considered to be a problematic area. And my final comment is that I could only imagine how much more problematic it would become if a large commercial building, which was going to be open 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, would be built on the corner of Pacific and Burchett.
Before I let you go, since you lived in that street the numbers of years that you're mentioning, when it was Marie Callender, how was traffic?
We never...
That was a large restaurant,
Yeah.
and it had quite a few customers at a time.
It really wasn't bad. I mean, we really never had any major issues with the Marie Callender's. I mean, it was the Starbucks situation that really made our neighborhood
Starbucks situation, to my
problematic.
understanding, has been a little lower now since they've
Since they opened the one up
No.
since
north
they
there.
opened up there.
No. It's
Okay.
horrible.
Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to go to Betty McBride.
Good evening. My name is Betty McBride, and I've lived in the area over 46 years. And my comments on this project are very negative, like the rest of my neighbors. We're not happy about it. We already have a negative impact at the intersection of Pacific and Burchett and the 500 block of Burchett. I'm not happy because the problems are the proximity of the freeway. It's a very short block. Cars are lined up, shortcutting, and at the traffic hour, and so that's a problem. Traffic problem also with Starbucks because they have a lack of parking, and they're always double parking, and they're making U-turns. Then we have the traffic number 3 is Pacific, the general traffic that goes down Pacific. And number 4, we have the shortcut traffic that comes from above Glen Oaks down Kenilworth to Burchett to access the freeway. It's a shortcut thing. Then we have the daily delivery trucks from HK Market and then Starbucks 16-wheeler, which they leave running at certain times, refrigerated. You have United Parcel and Federal Express coming up and down our narrow street. And then number 6, we have the general volume of private and business traffic. So this project will really only exacerbate the existing problem that we have. The 500 block of Burchett and the intersection were greatly impacted, and it goes back to April the 11th of 2000 when the city zoning administrator, Edith Fuentes, issued a variance to the owner, Thomas Ortiz, to lease the building to Starbucks, which had only 8 parking places. The variance permitted this type of business to operate with 15 less parking places. So the city violated the code and created this huge traffic problem in favor of revenues to be received by this commercial enterprise to the detriment of the residents of 500 block of Burchett. So for the last 15 years, the residents on 500 block Burchett have been subjected to heavy traffic, lack of parking, Starbucks patrons barking over our driveways, noise pollution, littering, loitering, and lack of street cleaning. And these problems occurred because of the zoning commissioner, Edith Fuentes, and the city granting this variance. This should help you understand the injustice done to our street. And so my feeling is the city has no regard for the quality of life on 500 block of Burchett.
Thank you very much.
I have a very quick question.
Go for it, Mrs. Mooney.
We understand the situation. We all live in Glendale, and we understand the situation there.
Well, I just wanted to give you the history of this because a lot of people don't have a clue. You don't live here. You don't know what we go through. We have street cleaner that goes right down the middle of the street.
You made your
Can
point.
you answer his question? He wants to ask
I haven't
you a
even
question.
gotten to my question yet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So we have an existing Marie Callender's restaurant that certainly could be leased to another restaurant. And there's going to be just as much traffic, let's say, coming out of that restaurant. And what other uses do you think are appropriate for the site besides what we got here, because it is commercially zoned?
I would rather have a restaurant.
Just what have you thought of that you think is fair?
Well, I would rather have a restaurant than a Rite Aid. We're going to have all this traffic. When these people come down here to go here, and with all this congestion on the intersection, they're eventually going to go straight down Burchett now and go back up Kenilworth and come around Glen Oaks to get out. I mean, the whole thing is like we're locked in.
So basically, you're saying a restaurant is fine.
I would rather have a restaurant.
Answer my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to go to William Carter.
Yes, I don't live in Glendale. I'm a friend of several people on 500 block of Burchett, but I am impacted. I come in, I turn generally on Pacific, and I come down to try and turn on Burchett, and more often than not, they're double parked. Now, I have never seen any of these people cited for double parking. However, I have seen people cited for crossing the double line to get around these people. As far as the speed bumps, I no longer turn on Burchett. I come in on San Fernando Road, come in around, go through a bunch of very low concentration roads that they managed to put speed bumps on. I have to slow down for all of these speed bumps until I get on the Burchett drag strip. About 11 o'clock when Starbucks closes up, if the police were interested in getting speeders, they could find them every night. As far as the complaints about the noise and the trash, I live 120 feet from Loyola Marymount University, which has 9,400 kids. It's almost like a tomb in comparison to Burchett. Something has to be done. This is not appropriate for a residential area.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The three last speakers actually submitted correspondence regarding the project proposal. Two of the letters came in during the environmental review period, and those two letters were included in your final negative declaration, as well as a response to comments prepared by staff. Just to note at this point in time, the comment letters were forwarded to the Public Works Department as well as to the Glendale Police Department. The issue with the speed bumps was actually, there was a request that was submitted in 2013 to put speed bumps on Burchett between Pacific Avenue and Kenilworth. At that point in time, the 85th percentile speed was below the city threshold adopted by the city councils for speed bump installation, so the request was denied. Traffic and transportation staff have actually said that they would be able to go ahead and conduct another speed and volume survey to see if there's been an increase in the travel speed, and if so, then the neighborhood would be able to go ahead and submit a petition. 75% of the residents, the property owners on Burchett, would have to sign the petition in order for them to then go forward with a request for speed bumps to present to the traffic and transportation. In regards to the stop sign, that item was also, there was a petition submitted again back in 2013 and 2013. The traffic volumes and the collision history didn't meet the Caltrans limits for a multi-way stop control at the time, and again, the request had to be denied. Traffic and transportation staff would be able to go ahead and conduct a new study to see if the traffic conditions have changed, and again, if they have, then they would proceed with a stop sign at the Kenilworth and Burchett. And I just wanted to make note of it, that those items the concerns have been forwarded to the
Okay,
appropriate
and addressed.
departments and to take a look and see.
Thank you for elaborating that out. I'm glad you brought it up because those were addressed and we got them. Now, can I suggest, Ms. Amatitis, is that the neighborhood still pursue the speed bump and through the traffic and do another study?
Again,
'Cause
traffic and
it's not
transportation.
actually in our position to create that or
No.
ask for that.
They would be able, the traffic and transportation staff would be able to go ahead and do another speed and volume analysis. And if if it falls above the 28th percentile with regards to that study, then the neighborhood the actual property owners would then have to petition, and 75% of the actual Burchett property owners would have to sign the petition in order for that request to move forward to the Traffic and Transportation Commission, Traffic and Parking Commission. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Aram Kazazian.
Good evening. My name is Aram Kazazian. May I approach the drawing and show you what we need to do? Thank you. I'm only going to speaking for the neighbors. I'm not speaking either for the project or against the project. I'm trying to give respect to all the neighborhood. You have about 20, 30 people here that do need to be heard and understood. What I see some problems, I'll pick up, I think the commissioner picked up over here too. They are narrowing down this first lane over here to be able to get a right turn lane. So you get a left straight and another one. This curb, as I understand, it's not being pushed back this way any, but by only narrowing this, which is going to make it worse for Starbucks traffic to back into this lane. They have to go into the left turn lane to get out, which is a more dangerous. I spoke to the developer. He said there's some kind of, I guess, drain over here or something, but I think you still do have some room where you can widen this so this lane will not be narrowed down right now. That's what I read. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I read. This lane is being narrowed down right now. So people making a left turn over here is going to be almost impossible to turn, and there were people coming out to Starbucks, especially like they said, a lot of people double park here. That means you have to go into the left turn pocket to get around it. This idea, I see it feasible, which is working good. Another point, I see that this Pacific over here, when you come down, I come out the street every day to make a left turn, get on the freeway to go on Pacific. Only one car per light can go through, only one. And that one car must stop over here and block the traffic going this way to be able to get into the left turn pocket. Even though by going over the yellow line, you don't have enough room to do that. You do need almost a second lane to make the left turn here. And if you put the building within 2 or 3 feet of this of the curb over here, you're never going to be able to in the future widen this where you can put an extra lane in here to make a left turn onto the freeway, which is very important. I don't know what's over here in this area. It could be fire service detector. If it moves over just a few feet, you can add another lane in the future. That's what I'm looking for.
Are you, sir, I'm sorry, you said hang a left, but that's the exit of the freeway.
That's the exit, yes.
Yeah, but it's also the on-ramp to the freeway going
You
this
have
way.
to go down. You got to go further down.
Oh, it's further down?
Yeah, so you got
Under the bridge,
Yeah.
you pass under.
Okay, yes. Still, you do need an extra lane in here. Yeah, you're right. You're correct. This is the exit. That's the exit. Where's the on-ramp to the freeway? Right here,
That's
right?
you're on it. You're planning on it.
Okay, that's the on-ramp. But you do have this problem. How is it gonna? Yeah, you're right over here. Okay. Well,
That's a 5-foot setback he's got there.
5-foot setback. Yeah. Is it 5-foot setback?
Yeah.
I can see very good. Okay. All right, but over here we can live with this maybe, but over here you need something over here to resolve this other problem. You need 2 lanes. Yeah, if you don't have 2 lanes, there's no way you're going to be able to resolve this freeway. Yeah, this is the on-ramp to the freeway.
No.
That's the on-ramp, but there's an on-ramp in the front.
This is the
Yeah,
130.
time,
This is the 134 east. You exit. the off ramp.
Okay.
The on ramp,
yeah,
it
yeah.
happens somewhere around
Further,
here.
okay, you're okay.
Okay.
I lost that
Are we
area.
done, Mr. Kazazian? You're
Yeah.
done, so-
Okay, here's right. Yeah, sorry, I got turned around over here. But this area, you have to widen this area. Remember, Starbucks lost 7 parking spaces. They used to have 7 additional parking spaces. The city took it away from them when they redid this intersection over here. That's why they're also short. Before, they used to have additional parking spaces that they lost. So they're strained, and you do have a problem with closing a business down. It's not going to help unless you resolve this intersection and give them more parking. Somebody has to work on that.
So your concern is the intersection. You have no issues with the design or anything?
I'm not going to comment on design. That's your job to do. I'm not going to say anything design. Traffic is my main concern, and getting on this freeway, it's almost impossible. In the mornings, you can turn, of course, which you have no choice, into the on-ramp.
Because you repeated it already. I need to go to the other.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Think so.
I got the
But look into that. Thank you.
All right. Diane?
Hi, my name is Diane Carter. I live on Arden, but I'm over in that area. It's about a block away. And maybe I missed something because I missed the other meetings. This is the only notice that I got.
It's the only
from the
meeting
city.
we've had on this.
Okay.
This is it.
But they had some other.
That was just a staff communication with the applicant.
Okay. My concern is that there's already 4 pharmacies in the area. There's one on Glen Oaks and Pacific, one on Dryden and Pacific, and Kaiser, right? 1 block from another pharmacy, and Walgreens down by Trader Joe's. That's brand new. Personally, I don't think we need another pharmacy, and perhaps they should have looked at some other options.
What's your objection, Ms. Diane? Because that's their choice, what they want to do with the property. You know, that's a business choice. I need to hear your concern about.
My concern is that it's. I think the neighborhood could be more enhanced with something else, such as the restaurant that she proposed, or I think the city of Glendale maybe might be able to take it over and bring something in more pertinent for the city. From my personal point of view, I'm an artist. Glendale does not have a single visual art venue, and it might be a nice place to put something like that.
Thank you.
And one thing, you know, we understand where you're coming from. What the jurisdiction that this board has is over design.
Only design?
Only design. And so we can't really comment on the use that is proposed, but the design and transportation and parking, etc.
Well,
Look at context,
to me, it's
overall
the
design.
quality of life of the area.
We understand what you're saying, though.
Thank you.
Questions? All right.
Thank you. Kevin Haney?
Kevin Haney. Thank you for having this hearing, this meeting. My biggest concern, I've lived in the 500 block since 2009, and my biggest concern is the traffic in the intersection. And there was talk about widening Burchett, which is a notoriously narrow street. It's almost like all the streets on and Burchett and Arden all were originally one-way streets. And I don't understand where that widening is coming from. I'm assuming it's coming from the Rite Aid side.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes,
I
it is.
believe that it's been addressed, and I'm going to reiterate it, that the limitation of parking at Starbucks creates massive problems, and they're absolutely correct that there's a lot of illegal, double parking and stuff. I don't know how the semi is going to get in there and get into that second or, into those driveways. And these are my concerns, mostly logistical from Pacific, from that intersection. And that's pretty much, I don't know that the parking for the Rite Aid is adequate, but I'm sure that you've done research.
It is adequate. It meets code requirement. There's no variances. The parking is actually several cars over what's required. Now they're attempting to dedicate, and they've tried their best to dedicate their land and try to align the street based on our traffic engineers, city engineers. So they're trying their best to make it work.
Okay.
All I could tell you that. If your questions are as far as traffic, speed, and all that, you are welcome to, go to the city council or traffic commission and address your concerns as a neighborhood.
Okay.
Maybe you'll get a better response.
That's all very well and good, but it's more about I want to make sure that the planning of that extra lane, I'm just concerned about how that is figured out. And I know that's what you're...
His question is from what I understand, if the turning lane is being developed by a dedication or just narrowing of the lanes. He wants to understand how that's...
Well, my understanding it's a combination of both, Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions to staff or anything? Or should I'm going to give the applicant a rebuttal time. Mr. Cushman, was it? Oh, I need one of you, just one.
I wanted to address that last question.
I was going to say, yes, Mr. Sklepko, the civil engineer on the project, would like to address the comment regarding the narrowing and the widening with regards to the turning lanes.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Ron Sklepko, DRC Engineering. The widening is being accomplished by additional dedication up to 5 feet on the property side. And we are not narrowing that lane coming westbound from its existing condition. So.
Just to clarify for I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
If I may.
Sure.
So the widening that you're proposing, though, this point here remains the same, correct?
We're pulling the curb back 5 feet south.
You're pulling the curb back 5 feet.
That humpback is coming back
and
5
so,
feet.
Yeah. That whole quadrant is being rebuilt.
For those in the audience and for those in the viewing public, when we're talking about widening, it's not just here that we were talking about earlier in comments. You're also widening here 5 feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Come on up, Mr. Bogdan.
Just want to, the issue was raised, if I may address that, about the difficulty making a left turn northbound Pacific onto Burchett. The city is currently in the process of a major capital improvement project on Pacific Avenue, starting from Durham all the way north of Glen Oaks. The street is being improved, the signals are being upgraded. There will be a northbound left turn lane installed. It's what's called protective permissive. In other words, has an arrow that comes in when their left turn pocket is full. The arrow comes on, allowing left turns onto Burchett. So that currently does not exist. It's permissive. It's only a through movement or a left. But there will be an arrow. The upgrade of the signal at the Burchett and Pacific will include their arrow.
And I know it's hard for you to indicate this, but based on your conversations, when do you think that improvement will occur?
That project is currently underway. I believe in early 2016, that project will be done.
The construction has already begun there.
The street improvement is underway. The signal, in fact, we have been working with the city to make sure that the street improvement work that needs to be done will be coordinated with the city in terms of the design of the street improvement as well as the actual work. There is a condition in the development in the approval process where the developer, the architect, the engineers, we will be working hand in hand with the city to make sure that improvements occurs while the city is also doing the street improvement and the signal upgrade. That entire signal at Burchett and Pacific will be completely upgraded with new equipment, and the left turn arrow will also be installed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Correct. And the North Pacific Improvement Plan, as Mr. Bogdanian mentioned, has begun. It's starting from the Colorado intersection, Pacific and Colorado, and moving northbound up to the Burchett Pacific intersection, and it is slated to be completed by the end of summer of 2016.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to ask the architect to come up if he has anything to add. Anything you want to add?
No, I think hopefully I've answered all your questions.
Any questions to him? No. Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you very much.
Close the public hearing. Start deliberating. I'm going to start with Mr. Simonian. See what your thoughts are.
Well, as we've heard with everyone's approach this evening, is that we've had an existing Marie Callender's that's been vacant for some time, and there's been a lot of different proposals that have been floated on this specific parcel over the last several years, from anything from multifamily to a hotel to other uses in line with retail as well. Some of those uses that were proposed with hotel and whatnot had quite a bit of mass to them, height to them, traffic to them. So when we assess a given property and a given design, we like to look at things holistically. And we, I think, all, well, I should say, I believe most of the board, if not me specifically, understand the nuances of this intersection. I grab coffee at that Starbucks maybe once a month or so, and I've probably been doing that, I don't know, for the last 12 years or so, and so I'm well aware of everything that's being presented this evening. And so with the background that was presented to us, which we appreciate, along with our understanding of that specific intersection, coupled with the fact that it is a very important intersection in my point of view. It is a hard corner. It's right next to the freeway entrance, and so anybody that's really coming southbound on Pacific is going to go by it. Anybody that's coming off the freeway going northbound is going to go by this property. So it's an important intersection, and that coupled with the fact that it's a large parcel, square foot wise. So these kind of parcels don't come around all that often. And so when this board approaches the project and assesses the design, we look at the transportation element, we look at the parking element, we look at the design element, and we look at the mass and bulk of a given project. And then we look at the overall design to make sure that's appropriate and worthy of this corner, let's just say, because whatever is built is going to be around for many, many years. And so I'm comforted by the fact that a parking consultant such as Jono is been brought in, because I do know his work, and I know that he takes a lot of care to work with the transportation department directly, and Mr. Wayne Coe and Jono go back and forth quite a bit, taking into consideration future city projects that are slated on a public works side and how those future improvements could be dovetailed into what's being proposed at the moment. I believe that with this left turn improvement that the city has slated, coupled with the fact that we're doing a 5-foot moving of that curb in its entirety along the south side of Burchett, will relieve some of the problems associated with the Starbucks use. And let's face it, that's really the culprit here. It's Starbucks. That's the problem, and why you guys are having all these issues. And our approach as far as the design that's presented here, such as a pharmacy compared with a restaurant, I don't know. I mean, who's going to have more traffic? A successful restaurant that's a large chain, think of it as a, I don't know, Cheesecake Factory-ish kind of a thing that could come there, or CVS. Your guess is as good as ours, but they both have a good amount of traffic going in and out. But these left turn lanes that are being proposed will certainly alleviate that. And now when we step back into design of the project, and I appreciate the chairman going to me first, because as I said in the beginning of this evening, is I do have to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my comments, and then I unfortunately have to excuse myself, and I'll leave up to the rest of the board to discuss some of the comments that I've said and to go off of them or whatnot. But these are just comments for the board to consider in my absence. And And my comments are as follows. I think there is an opportunity here for us to work with the general principles of the design and the site plan, but to make sure that the architecture is a bit more polished and in line with a corner that's as important as this is. More specifically, I think that the vast flat roof with those corner rotundas as proposed could certainly be refined a bit. The coping at the top in these areas could be refined. However, these are more design-oriented issues. They're not really associated with the mass and bulk. I think the overall height and location of the project seems to be in line for a commercial corner. Some of the comments that were raised by the other board members as far as providing more ample landscaping within the parked area certainly has some merits to it. And, that comes with weighing in the fact that obviously with more landscaping that we provide, the more parking is going to be lost and et cetera. So there's a give and take with that as well. The architecture in itself, though, I think seems a bit value engineered, I guess the only way I could really describe it. I think it could benefit that neighborhood and it could benefit that intersection by having more materials, that more color variation, and perhaps not as heavily weighted towards the brick veneer. That brick veneer in itself is a bit overplayed in the design. But again, those are just design-oriented features, not so much what the overall layout, circulation of the project seems to be working. The driveways, the way they're oriented, seems to be working, coupled with the improvements that are going on or going to occur. And so the way the truck is accessed and the way the trash is accessed is done properly at the rear of the building, so it's not visible really to the neighborhood. And so circulation-wise, that works. The driveway is again pulled away from the intersection, so as you're going northbound or southbound on Pacific, you're not going to see the drive-through, I should say, I'm sorry. And so that's kind of on the west side as well, which is nice, because you don't see the cars queuing up along Pacific. So all these things put together, coupled with the fact that now with all the dewatering regulations that the county has, that takes up that hard corner with where that depressed planter is, starts to kind of define the direction they've taken. And so I think if we're able to, or this board is able to concentrate on some of those design issues, I'll make the building probably more successful.
May I follow up with you, since you're going to be leaving? You mentioned the brick is overwhelming. What material you want to are you suggesting?
Well, there's a lot of urban infill drugstores have been kind of going down this brick facade look, urban areas in the last 10 or 15 years. I think we have an opportunity here to maybe use some metal siding as a way to celebrate that corner and that entrance would be, I think, a good way. It doesn't, all four corners just do not need to be just brick. I think metal siding would be a good alternative. That juxtaposed with the smooth plaster as a form of a relief in the background would certainly give it that layering that I think they're trying to achieve with emphasizing the corner. And then, whether it's that kind of a brick veneer or more of a contemporary, vertical-oriented stone veneer might actually work better as more of a base for a building as opposed to it going up. Because, anytime we have brick that's coming up into this kind of cantilevered corner, doesn't really make sense as far as a material. You're used to having stone be on the ground, holding things up in compression as opposed to floating in midair. So I'm glad you asked that. That's really what my direction.
Those were my thoughts too. The material is overwhelming, but I thought maybe more of a burnished or a precision block would be more keeping. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Bellanian?
I would tend to agree with Mr. Simonian because the first thing I was thinking about is the material. I mean, in terms of the mass and scale, seems appropriate. Heights are okay. Situation, I appreciate that they still put the building where the existing used to be, so that's okay as well. The main thing that seems overwhelming about this design is the brick, which seems a bit outdated. And I also agree with Mr. Martin about the landscaping. I think we can afford probably to lose a couple stalls and just widen these planters and add some more landscaping. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Mardian. So I'm going to keep my comments short because a lot of the things I was thinking have been already mentioned. I think, and I'm very sensitive to the value engineering because I understand that there's a certain, cost effectiveness to these things. And also there's all sorts of concerns with potential vandalism, with potential, transient type things that kind of plague these types of uses. I support the traffic studies. I want to make sure it was very clear that additional 5 feet was there. The site plan overall, I think, would be a successful use. And I'm here, neither here nor there on the adding of landscaping. I think some shade trees would be nice from various purposes. But my main concern is the overall look of the building, and I can appreciate that Rite Aid Corporate has a certain look that they want, but as the representative indicated, there are multiple variations that Rite Aid is okay with in other areas, and there's multiple ones. This just happens to be one of the ones that they use. And the horizontal banding with the different color block, I have issue with. I don't think it is very appealing. Mr. Simonian's comments about the location of this corner, a large number of Glendale residents and visitors to Glendale will see this location as they drive by. I would welcome the applicant to reconsider the facade. This building.
And may I ask, since we're going into a direction of material change, since we're okay with the mass and scale, how do you want to approach this? You want to see it back, or you want to suggest something?
I think staff could work with the applicant to curtail the facade. I think the suggestion of a composite metal facade instead of a brick veneer is a good one. I think that breaking up the volume with something other than horizontal striping could be achieved, and those could be worked into conditions. I don't think a redesign is necessary unless you would like to see a redesign to see what that looks like. But for my purposes, I think that staff could work it out.
Okay. Thank you all. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Simonian?
Just as a follow-up, I think those rotundas and how they're dealt with and how they actually screen the HVAC behind them and actually trying to create more of a special rotunda in the hard corners as opposed to the rears would be kind of a nice hierarchy as well with the metal siding.
Well, I concur with all the comments. I do agree with the traffic analysis. I think the applicant has done the best to align the street. Similar project occurred down on Pacific where the new Starbucks is. That whole street was aligned in a similar fashion. I don't know if Mr. Giano remembers that or not. We had to realign to make that corner work better, and I think it has. And I trust their judgment. I mean, it has gone through a lot of processes with the city staff to get to there. And let's keep in mind, something has to happen to this property. And it's been vacant for a long time. And they are dedicating. And, I know the community is questioning the traffic, but this side of the street is trying their best to make it work. Now, what happens on the other side of the street, hopefully one day there's other things that occur there, and they'll widen that side because, I mean, it's hard to come back and take everything from this applicant. They're already trying to do their best. But I'm going to go back to design. My concerns is I want to make sure these awning details are properly shown on the plan. And I have I think the brick is overwhelming, especially on the main entry. It should be more different material, maybe, or aluminum, or any to soften it up. Then the other thing, I think, when you're doing something like this here, this indentation, I think that's very minimal, especially when it's brown. I don't see it. Maybe another foot to it could be help, and maybe change the color on that to give it a little more relief, and make that entry more transparent. I think your new proposal is. I know you want to keep the building a concrete block and valued engineering, but it's too solid. I mean, it needs to soften up a little bit more. But I do emphasize on those roof towers. They should continue all around so we don't see the openings because it is a parapet. And the overhangs should be extended further a little bit more. It just feels like one square now. Another foot to the overhang will add to the edges.
The roof overhangs?
The roof overhangs, yeah. Okay. I think that will help the building even further. But I'm open on the material as far as what material we're... But I know maybe Mr. Charchin or some of you are not happy with the split face or the block. Maybe I suggested more of a burnished, more modern material, because split face is, it's outdated. I mean, let's face it all.
Sure. And the striping in particular is split face striping is...
They could use stucco of some sort.
Yeah.
Some sort of, not a total smooth stucco, but at least a mid-finished one, would have some color and some depth, and those windows could be recessed a bit. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, even where he indents where the awnings are, that could be all stucco. Yeah, and then you can come back and do another material around it. But, those are my comments, and I'll entertain a motion.
Do we want, I guess?
I think we need to listen to the
conditions. We have a few things to talk about. Going back to the beginning of the discussion and some of the early questions, we reviewed the plans and couldn't find a lighting plan for the parking lot, so we'll make sure that that's developed and that the lights are appropriate to the style of the building and meet code. We heard a couple of times that we'll get a detailed drawing for the canopies proposed at the entrance and the drive-through. This may change, but we'll make sure that the roof plan is ultimately correct and that the returns on the corner tower elements are long enough to screen the equipment and also provide a sense of mass at the corners if those stay in the design. We have the concept of introducing more landscaping at the parking lot, possibly by incorporating trees at some of the bio...
yeah, I mean, my concern was that front entry parking area.
Along Burchett?
On Burchett.
Okay, so we can focus on Burchett and see if there are other locations to add some more trees.
Because that island in between those two driveways is very minimal.
We heard
by the way, I don't know if I should ask you, Jerry. This area, they don't call it out as parking. What is it? It's just an open turnaround area? I forgot to ask the applicant right in here.
Oh, that would actually be a circulation drive-through aisle, so that there is circulation.
Loop.
That you can loop.
Within that?
Correct.
Okay. Could that be smaller? Maybe achieve the landscape there?
We can take a look and see.
Okay.
Yeah, typically it is 20 feet for a two-way
need that
drive
loop?
aisle.
Is it required?
That would be the typical width, and so we will double check with.
Yeah, but is
for
that the loop or the opening required? Sizes.
Yeah, so you don't have dead-end driveways.
Correct.
He doesn't have a dead-end driveway. He'll come in and go out this way.
So
No,
that someone circling
but
wouldn't have
circling, you wouldn't have to go out
Okay, that's
into.
a good traffic.
That's the circulation.
Yeah, okay, that's a good traffic.
I wish Board Member Simonian had stuck around for a minute. He was looking for a refinement to the roof copings and the flat roof with tower concept, and I wasn't sure exactly where that was going, but I think
It's
through
a
some of the
continuation
cladding.
of the whole block.
Right,
Which area?
this came after that, but I think some of the other discussion points we've made after that, we can cover that concept. In general, the board is looking to see higher quality or different, softer kind of cladding materials, particularly at the corner elements, to move away from the brick cladding, and also to find ways to avoid the horizontal striping as much as we have on the building. One possibility for materials would be to include burnished or precision block where block is going to be exposed, incorporate more stucco on the walls, especially at the entry corner and possibly other locations. There was also, talked about metal cladding, we talked about the metal at the roof, if those roof kind of projections at the corners remain, to kind of find a way to emphasize the indented portion through either size or color.
Definitely needs to get a little larger.
Yeah, taller, and or different color. We have a concept to break up the volumes without using the horizontal stripes as heavily as they're employed in the proposal. There was a concept to create what board member Simonian said was a special rotunda at the corner. That would be the northeast corner at Pacific and Burchett, to have a different type of tower there, possibly. Rooftop. There was a concept. I wasn't sure the design team from Rite Aid came back with a proposal to add more glass at the entrance.
Yes, they
Do you
did.
want to see more transparency as well, less spandrel glass? I think their concern was the light spillover into the neighborhood, and I think they wanted a little more solidity there.
I think the concern was structural, if I hear that correctly.
Yes.
Structural.
Yeah, it's structural for the span to hold the concrete. So the glass is to the veneer, correct?
Spandrel?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination, because the structure is not covering both sides of the entrance so heavily, and they were proposing a fair amount of spandrel glass.
Oh, you mean you're specifically stating at the entrance?
At the entrance, yeah.
This is the
new one's fine.
The new one's.
I'm sure some of it is hiding structure at the corner.
The new one is fine.
Okay, so I'll take that off the list. We'll say that's been met.
Was that the original staff comment that was in the staff
Yeah.
report?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
The revised,
based on the revised.
We'll move forward with the revised proposal
Yeah.
for the corner, the entry area. And use more stucco, possibly recess the windows once we figure out what those materials are going to be on the side facades. Then I had one question.
window recessing, was that mentioned?
Was
Which one?
mentioned.
The window recess? I don't think we mentioned window recess.
So Simonian did.
I don't see how you could.
Yeah, Commissioner, Board Member Simonian mentioned it as he was walking out. So.
I don't see how you could. I wouldn't be in support of that.
Well, you could recess the window within the depth of the block.
Yes, it's going to be recessed anyway.
I'm just repeating what I heard. So.
Okay. Because
those
are,
if there's
already got it indented.
If there's no concurrence, we'll get rid of that one. And then I had a question for Board Member Mardian. You mentioned the concept of softening the block walls, and I wasn't sure what your thoughts were.
If we're going to stay with block walls, maybe split face is too much and get rid of some of these lines.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to do it stucco, that's fine too. But I thought maybe, I don't think I want to see split face on this building.
Yeah, no, that's definitely clear.
And I think by the new revision and extending these eaves a little bit more and popping this out, it gives you a little more, a little better,
emphasize that tower.
Emphasize that tower better.
Okay.
And the same thing with these overhangs here. They should be maybe another 6 inches or so.
And since we're talking about that coping area, if they keep it consistent throughout.
Throughout, yeah.
Yeah. Not have the indentation somewhere and lose it there. Like.
I'm fine with that. Actually, makes it a little different.
Fine with mixing it up.
Mixing it up is fine.
I'm fine with mixing it up.
Yeah,
as designed.
As designed.
And then
it's just extending it a little more to eaves.
While we're focusing on those corners, is there concurrence on Board Member Simonian's concept of a more signature tower at the corner? And if so, do you have any ideas?
I think height at that point is 29 1/4.
Yeah, it's about 30 feet.
It's about 30 feet, yeah.
30 feet. So I think anything more mass there would not be something I would support. I think that could be achieved by a change of materials.
And then also the extension of the roof cap so that we have a little more termination at the top?
Yes.
Okay, so we will get rid of that. That's everything I had. So.
Okay. I would like to go to Mr. Platt on the first item that you mentioned, the lighting.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting, I think the concern there was because it abuts residential, especially at the driveways.
Mm-hmm.
My concern there was to make sure that there's no overflow of the lighting to the residential, and that was, I think, before it was disclosed that this would not be a 24-hour store. So we would want to probably have like a lighting plan for when the store is open and operating, and a slightly different lighting plan for when the store is closed to minimize even further the thing. But of course, keeping in mind that there's security concerns at a store like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's likely they'll want to have lighting throughout the evening. Yes, and that's kind of a standard issue for us to shield light fixtures where they abut residential areas, but we'll make sure it's in the conditions.
It's commercial next door.
No, above here. There's four residences directly across the street, so they need to get.
Yeah, okay.
We don't want to have the floodlights
no
going into their front yards because that would be bad. Okay. And then.
Anything else?
No.
Other comments?
Make a motion.
Right. Oh, the board actually has to.
Certify.
Correct. You would have to adopt the negative declaration first.
I had one thing. I don't know if you haven't checked the box under public services. With this project, substantial adverse physical impact associated with the provisions of newly physical auto government facility. Is that supposed to be marked?
And I'm sorry, which page would that be?
Page 25.
Item N.
Yeah. Public services.
Under public services, yes. And I'm sorry, which box? I'm sorry.
It's clean. I mean, it's
empty because that particular is box is empty because if you'll notice, it's the public services. It continues on, and a colon fire for fire protection, police protection, schools, parks, and other facilities. So there should be no box marked for the original chapter.
Just clarification. That's okay.
So it does show that fire protection, police protection, school, parks are all less than significant impacts.
Okay. Well, I need a motion on the proposed negative declaration.
I'll make the motion.
To approve the negative declaration.
To adopt the negative declaration, a motion has been made by Board Member Charchin. Second?
No,
I'm sorry, Benlian, and I'm looking at Board Member Charchin to see if you, for a second, that's exactly why.
Boy, I'm on the spot.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
will second it.
Thank you. I need a motion on the design.
Okay, and then we do need a vote first.
okay.
So, Board Member Benlian?
Yes.
Board Member Charchin?
No.
No. Yes or no?
I have to say yes. I
Chair
second it.
Mardian?
Yes.
Okay, so the
All right.
motion to adopt the negative declaration passes unanimously. And in terms of the actual designs with the conditions that were just mentioned by Mr. J. Platt, is there a motion to approve the project with those conditions?
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Board Member Benlian and a second by
Yes.
Board Member Charchin. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Charchin,
Yes.
Board Member Benlian,
Yes.
and Chair Mardian.
Yes.
The motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
All right.
Which
We
leads
have a
us
minutes,
to the
yes.
next item on tonight's agenda would be the minutes from September the 24th. And
I believe
board members
was not
Benlian
present.
and Mardian were here. So
Yeah, well-
you essentially could make a motion to approve those minutes simply because majority out of...
We can do it?
You can do that.
We can do it. You want to make the motion? I'll pass the gavel in a second.
Sure.
I have a motion by Chair Mardian and a second, I would assume, by Board Member Benlian.
I'll go ahead and approve.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
Okay. And there are no other items on tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Why did I go on record?